How are you, Sam? How you doing?
Good, good. How you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Yeah. Can't wait for this damn rain, man.
Oh, man.
Makes it hard to fish.
Yeah. Keeps people off the water for sure.
Does it seem slower for you guys when it rains?
I mean, this time of year it does. A lot of times this time of year, like guys, wanting to come through and kind of stuff out. But when there's really no going on, there's nothing to talk about. So
Yeah.
if they're going out, at least we can say, well, this they were catching them this way, or things like that. Right now, there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah, it's already slow, and then you throw some rain on top of that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we kind of become like a center, so people are down to see like what's going on with the different boats and give them like maybe feedback from maybe other customers. Then there's no feedback, nobody going out. I mean, there was the one boat that went out on this weekend, the Polaris Supreme. They caught a few, so that's positive. But we're still waiting for it to really get underway.
Yeah, we're getting some yellowtail to San Diego right now, right?
Yeah, that's been probably the biggest thing is the boat's doing really, really well on that. Yo-yo fishing, traditional calling net fishing. So that's been really good. Yeah.
So I want to start it off real quick. I know Luke probably has a million questions for you, but tell us how you started your tackle shop, man.
Well, I mean, I've been in the industry for a lot of years in different ways. And my first job I had was working on the Redondo fishing barge, 14 years old. So, one way or another, I've always been kind of attached to it. But, 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago now, actually 9 years ago, when we were expecting our first kid, it was kind of one of those things where, this is going to be the time if I'm ever going to do it, I'm going to do it now. Once the kids start growing up, it's going to be hard to kind of do that kind of thing. So there was a time at a previous job, I was actually working over at a Baja Fish Gear in Lomita, and we'd been running that place for about 12 years. And it was kind of going through a little bit of a transition time. And so it was just the timing was just right for me to give it a shot. And so with all the years of just kind of being in the industry, I figured, well, if I'm ever going to do it, I can't wait too much longer. And so I just kind of went for it, and luckily for me, pretty much as soon as we opened the doors, I would say within a few months is when like that big yellowtail was biting on the Horseshoe, and I mean, and it was pandemonium after that. The Bluefin showed up, and we had that El Nino where the Wahoo showed up. I mean, so we went from 0 to 60 in the blink of an eye, and so we were just so fortunate to have that. And then it just one of those things we just. Besides already kind of feeling, like I knew a lot of stuff as far as the industry, as far as buying things and where to go and all that kind of stuff, just to have the fishery just come to us like that. It was just a big, just lucky.
Now, I heard during that bite when the yellowtail was at the Horseshoe that you could see all the boats lined up and you could watch the school just go from boat to boat. You would just see this boat bend over, then the next boat, and you could watch it run.
Yeah. I mean, to put it in perspective, normally through the years, I would, help people out, get ready, rigged up for fishing. And so, they're going to take their kid fishing on a half-day boat, summertime. What do I need? Maybe some 12-pound, maybe 15-pound. On the heavy side, maybe some 25 if there's some barracuda around. But that's about it. Take 2 rods, probably could do it for the morning. And now this yellowtail showed up. It's like, well, you got any 2-speeds? Like, you're going on a half-day boat. They're like, yeah, if you got, that all I got is like a TLD-20 I used to troll on my dad's boat. I'm like, perfect, Put some 60-pound on that. These fish are big. They're all like straight 30, 40-pounders. And, guys were going out and boats were going out catching 40, 50 on a half-day boat, 40, 50, 30 to 40-pound yellows day in, day out for like 2 months straight. I mean, it was crazy, and, to be able to open up a shop and then that happens, you just, there's no better situation for us. It just worked out so great. But yeah, it was crazy. I got to go fishing that summer a little bit. We're so busy I couldn't go out that much. But man, for those guys that had small boats, it was perfect. You can go out there with a 14-foot boat, come back with 15, 30-pound yellows. Between 3 guys, be a limit. It's like that's freaking incredible. That's something you would have to go on a 2-day trip, to get that kind of quality. And they were right out front, literally right out front. So that was yeah.
What makes me laugh is a lot of people want to jump into tackle shops, bait making, and all this thing, and like all the bait world kind of thing, thinking that they're going to fish more. No. When you start making baits, when you start running a tackle shop, you actually fish less. Yeah. And now you start living vicariously through your customers and go, please send me pictures. Because that's all the enjoyment I get nowadays.
I mean, I was pretty fortunate through the years, with working at Baja, that I got to go fishing a lot. Before I was an employee, and it's kind of didn't have kids. I mean, I was married but didn't have kids, and we were just kind of living life. And so I got to go fishing quite a bit. So I mean, I really was appreciative that time came. But once the family was going to show up, I was like, well, I'm pretty much going to be committed to this situation. I'm going to be working for my family. And I said, if I'm going to do it, right now is the time. But you're right. I mean, not only do you not get to fish, but here we get like the most epic history of fishing that ever existed, and I get to fish even less. I mean, but that's not to say I haven't had some opportunities. It's been cool to be around it, but definitely I wish I was like 22 years old back in the day when I didn't have nothing to worry about. I'd be out there every day for sure. Yeah, pretty awesome.
So how often do you go out? Do you go a couple times a year on long range?
I do one trip a year on that long range boat. That's on the Royal Star, 11-day trip. And I'll usually get out, 2 or 3 times on maybe some like 2 or 3 day trips during the year. And then I'll try to get out on the half day with my kids. I'll take them out 4 or 5 times. That's really taking them fishing. Really, I'm not fishing. And then I'll end up going on like, 4 or 5 charters, with friends, customers, things like that. So, I mean, I shouldn't really complain. I go out fishing, I think, a lot, but for how good the fishing is, I should be going more. But fortunately, I have to do market research. So I have to go out there and make sure everything's working. So look, I get to go probably more often than maybe other shop owners do, but I got a good team. Those guys really hold it down when I go out. And so I'm fortunate to get out, but, it is tough. I mean, usually when the fishing gets really, really good is when we really can't go. But a lot of fishing you can have it like preseason, like right now, and then later into the fall, it can still be really good. And it slows down enough here where that's when I really try to get my trips in at the end of the season.
So coming up here, we have the Bart Hall show. And correct me if I'm wrong, you have the largest rod building booth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so run us down on that a little bit.
So, I've been because of Baja, I was working with the shows, in years past, and one of the things that they always did, which is kind of a good deal, is that they wanted to protect the people that already had booths. So what I mean by that is, let's say for instance, we had let's say Bob Sands, they had a big giant booth. And then Baja had a big booth. And then let's just say that I opened up, right? Well, eventually, they kind of had to like cap how many retail booths were going to be in there. And so, for the reason being is like, if you can kind of put it in perspective, let's just say, at that show, which was, always the biggest show, you'd have a situation in which maybe altogether, everybody who's in the show was going to buy, let's say 100 Trinidad 20s, total, through all the shops. That's how many were going to get sold because that's how many people wanted to buy a Trinidad 20. Well, if you got 5 shops, that's 4 a piece. If you got, 4 shops, that's 5 a piece, and so on. So the more shops that opened up, it doesn't mean you were going to sell more stuff to the people going. It just meant that every shop was going to sell less. And so they tried to protect the shops that were there. So here I come in, obviously wanting to be at the big show, and so I was like, man, let's see what we can do to try to get in there. And I talked to them. And I said, look, I have an idea, and people might think I'm crazy, but I want to go in there and primarily focus on selling rod building stuff. I said, that way I'm coming in as a shop. I mean, that's as our shop, that's not all we sell, obviously, but at the show, that's what we're going to concentrate on. So they kind of gave me that look like, well, man, have at it. I mean, lots of people have tried before, but, good luck to you. So we did it. We had like a 20-foot booth, and it worked out really good, and part of it too is that we had this great fishing that came along, but one of the things that they saw is that there was a lot of people that were coming to our booth and checking us out. So as the years went on, they gave us the opportunity to grow that our booth, and also they saw that other companies wanted to come in, meaning manufacturers wanted to come in and basically support us. So we had That's it. They were the first ones. They came in with a really big booth. And hey, man, if Sam's going to be there, dealer out there and on the West Coast, we want to come in with the big booth, American Tackle, Fuji. So basically what it did for them is that as long as I was there selling that rod building stuff, the manufacturers were going to go ahead and go buy the booths to support. So for the show, it worked out for them to be able to grow that area. So, basically through all that, it kind of put us in that position where some people will look at it as like, we're kind of like pigeonholed into that category, because everybody wants to go there and buy, brand new rod, brand new reel, and everything else. And we do sell some of that stuff at the show. It isn't like we don't, but we do primarily focus on rod building. Is that we became like the place to go. Southern California, we became the place to go for that primarily. Now, we don't carry everything out there, but we do carry a lot of stuff. And so we can usually take care of most people. And the other reason, too, it worked out is that in the wintertime, when it is slow, it gave us something steady that we could sell.
Mm-hmm.
And, not really kind of planning it for that way, but, we kind of a first taste of a couple winters, which I already knew they were going to be normally, slow, but we saw that the building thing, people do it. And so we're like, hey, we need to kind of focus on this. So it's just kind of created a situation that later on ended up helping us out a lot. So it's been good.
So Luke introduced me to your shop. We went together one day. Funny story. I was planning on buying a blank and starting my own build. I didn't get it. Luke ended up getting everything for himself. So, do you notice, like, has there been like an increase in rod building since you started?
Yeah, for sure. When I was growing up, we had a few shops around, and it was kind of like you take it for granted that those shops were going to carry that kind of stuff, and so I remember just thinking to myself that when I was growing up, it wasn't no big deal to have that stuff available to you. And it isn't like you can get it. You can go online stuff. But with rod building, you really have to figure out somebody that can help you make sure you get the right grips, the right reel seat, the right guides. And sometimes there's options, and now there's a lot of options. I mean, back then we just saw guides, so it wasn't really that hard. But nowadays there's so many options with K guides, low profile guides, spinning guides, and it can go on forever. So the fact that we have it available has really allowed people to kind of explore that. It's like having any kind of hobby shop, where whatever you're into, if you have someone there you can talk to about it, about guide spacing or about anything really on rod building, I think that really helps. So I think, to me, that's what's helped a lot of people kind of come into it. And once you get a taste of it, once you figure out that you could do it, then people just take it like to a whole nother level. A lot of guys that have just started, and then all of a sudden, like 6 months later, they're bringing me stuff they're building. I'm like, man, I'd never even be able to build that. But that take, that they're artful. They have an eye for color and design, and they're just good at it. And I think they'll be good at anything they do, painting cars or whatever. It's just have that knack for that. So once they get a hold of this, it's like, man, those guys do some incredible work. So it is kind of cool to see that. But yeah, it's definitely grown quite a bit.
Well, it's funny, when me and Charlie were going down there, he was like, yeah, I want to buy some stuff. I go, cool, we'll go to Islands. And he's like, oh, do they got a good selection? I go, oh, it's bigger than everybody else's. And he goes, what, like twice as big? I go, no.
Yeah.
Like 3 times as big? I go, no, like 20 times as big. Yeah. Like exponentially larger. And I think you were actually, I don't think you were there. I think you might have been on one of your trips. And we were looking at some rods, and Charlie goes, oh, I'm not quite sure what I want. And I pulled out this rain shadow blanket, and I was like, I just found a new swim bait rod. And I think there's also, talking about more people doing it. I think before it was this more like mystical, beautiful diamond wrap thing. And now there's a lot of more guys like me that are just like, yeah, I'm just some dirty garage builder. I'm going to black this thing out and have a new rod tomorrow.
Yeah.
This isn't taking 6 days. This is taking 6 hours, 4 hours.
Well, what is interesting about that, Luke, is everything starts somewhere. I mean, if you look at the first molds that I made, it was the same thing that you just described, but for bait making. And now I'm over here trying to chase the highest quality that I can produce out of the shed that I'm working in. So everything starts somewhere, and I can't wait till you're putting your name on stuff and potentially.
Oh, he's about to. He's about to. He's about to.
He says that, but he's going to retire one
He's
day.
about to. He's put it. My first build is going to be his build, so it's going to have his name on it.
I know. Luke loves putting his name on stuff.
I don't know where Daniel is. I don't know where Daniel is on the screen, but you know, he talks about his mold. I love his first mold. Like, you know,
he hates your new molds. He tells me all the time. He's like, I hate Daniel's new molds.
Like, you know, I catch fish, so I love it. You know, no, I love his new mold too. I do.
So, Sam, one of the interesting things I found out at your shop was, I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Daniel.
Go for it.
I was just going to make fun of Charlie, but the time's done.
So,
what were you going to say? What were you going to say?
Oh, really? No, I gotta make you all your favorite colors in the new leech so that you're confident in throwing those. That's all I was going to say.
So I came into the shop a while back and I said, you know, I'm going to go on a white sea bass trip. I don't have a specific white sea bass rod. I'd like to get a white sea bass rod. And I really researched it. I want this specific CalStar blank. And you said, yeah, that's a really good blank. They're sold out and we can't get more. There's a supply shortage. And he said, let me show you these rain shadows. And I was like, rain shadow, that's a stupid name. I don't want a rain shadow. If I'm not getting a CalStar, which I also think is a stupid name, I want a Phoenix or like, I want a name with like, I don't know, there's something with teeth. But so you go check out these rain shadows, and they blew me away. And I think we had United Composites. We had a couple different rods out, and I really liked the rain shadow. And I think it was John who built it for me. Is that his name?
Yeah.
And we never hooked into a white sea bass on that trip, but I really liked the rod, so I kept taking it out. I think I've caught 4 yellowfin on it, which isn't what it was made for. I've caught 4 yellowtail and more Dorado than I can count. I just love the rod, and I've been kind of stuck on it. I've got 4 more rain shadows since then. Now, is there any shape or form a rain shadow makes a finished rod, or are they only blanks?
Only blanks, yeah. They're kind of big deal is that they are primarily a supplier parts, you know. So is a brand of Bill Batson. Bill Batson, he supplies, you know, all of the stuff for like Alps. You know, so you've seen Alps on all the reel seats, and he also supplies other stuff too. But his main deal is supplying builders with parts, whether it's blanks, guides, reel seats, grips, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of his deal. And he, even though he's obviously has the ability to make stuff, you know, wrap stuff, you know, he doesn't want to get in between his customer and their customer, you know. So his customer is the builder, not the end user.
That makes
now
sense.
He does, yeah. So one thing he does do is that he'll, like for me, let's say for instance, if I wanted to have my own series of island fishing tackle rods, he would put me in connection with the people who do that and would be able to make me like, you know, whatever 10 models or whatever of you know, with labels and the whole thing. So he'll take that, but it won't be under the Rain Shadow brand. It'll be under whatever that brand. And he does that for a lot of people who were mostly, I think it's in like the bass world where these guys might have a shop, you know, in the Midwest, some of these bass shops are huge and they got their own brand of rods for their shop. So he might be the guy who's kind of putting those two pieces together.
Well, yeah, I think even out here, Performance has their line of rods.
Right. So, similar to that. Now, Performance builds their own, whereas Batson would deliver you a finished product, but it'd be a tackle or whatever the, you know, brand name that you wanted.
Yeah. Kind of like what Warbaits did with the Typin rods.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, more like that, I guess. Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
They don't have track rods.
Is that in the horizon for you?
You know, not really. Not something that I've really thought about. I mean, I think that to me at least, there's some limitations as to what I feel is good in every single category. So, like if I was gonna fish, you know, like a swim bait rod, it might be one brand. A jig stick might be another brand. rock fishing might be another brand. So I can't see myself tying myself to one brand and saying this is the best of everything, And so to me, I think it would be kind of tough. I wouldn't feel like I could do that without saying, well, my rock's good except for this other one's better, So yeah. I'd rather sell the best, solution to that problem,
Now, let me ask you this, just to hop back on rain shadow for a second. Are those made in America?
They are not. They're made overseas. Yeah.
I was just wondering because there was a question about it in the comments.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, they're probably the largest importer of blanks in the U.S. And a lot of stuff that they make. He was giving me a listing one day of a few different companies that he supplies to. It's like some blanks, but yeah, I mean, they are imported though.
So one of the things I in particular like about your shop, and every shop has, I go to like 5 or 6 different shops because there's certain things that I want at certain places. I really enjoy being able to go to your shop and look at all the eyes when I'm building a blank. Not just here's the eyes we have, but here's the eyes that are made. You get to check out all the different ones, and I got the K guides this last time that have that sweet little forward slant. I was showing Charlie the rod the other day. And I really enjoy being able to go check out all that other stuff. But one of the things I remember hearing a couple of years back is, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were one of the early suppliers of the frozen flying fish.
Yeah.
I remember there was a time when a couple of captains I knew, like, I was just in your area. I was going to Island. Like, why are you in San Diego but going to Island? And it's like, they have the flying fish.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of a situation that, once again, I mean, when I was growing up, my first job on the boat there, some of the guys that I worked with, they were, were friends with Paul, who provided the flyers. And so he basically had this idea. He's like, we know all the long range boats you guys themselves. I think that we sell these things. So would you be interested in trying to sell them? So of course I was like, hell yeah, I think these things are going to work. A lot of local, and so it was just a chance that the guys that I worked with when I was 14 years old were connected to this guy that was doing it. So he basically leaned on that guy and said, hey, do you know a tackle shop that would do it? He's like, I know just the guy. So I just happened to be in the middle of that situation. So yeah, it worked out. Yeah, for a while we were getting people from all over. I mean, we were going through probably, I don't know, 150 a week or something like that. $30. It was insane.
So sorry, go ahead, go on. I'm over here trying to interrupt.
They're working so good, it was undeniable. You had to have them.
So when you talk about frozen, I mean, I've thrown frozen bait before, and it kind of gets all mushy. How do you keep it from getting like that?
So this is the bait that guys are using on the kite. So they're rigging the bait up. They're actually propping out the wings, with some popsicles. There's different ways to do it, but popsicle sticks. You prop out the wings, and you put it up on the kite, and you basically are imitating what a flying fish, naturally does, which is skip on the surface. So basically, the guys are putting it out on the surface, and the bluefin would just I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. I mean, you could be fishing a hot mackerel on 40-pound fluorocarbon. They wouldn't touch it. You have one of these things on 400-pound leader, they're all over it as soon as they see it. So it was just one of those things.
And you get to watch them eat it.
Yeah, I mean, flowing explosions. It was, not only was it cool to watch, I mean, it was so effective. I mean, that was the deal.
Talking about that, I saw some awesome pictures you have on your page of like bluefin jumping out of the water.
Yeah,
which is pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, again, to have opened up the shop and this stuff just kind of comes into our zone. I mean, luckily, like working at the other shop, I was able to do some long range fishing. So, big fish fishing is something that I was at least familiar with. So when that stuff came into our zone, I was like, oh yeah, I know exactly how to do this. This is awesome, and to have all these people basically have that same experience. Before, you had to go on a 10 to 12 day trip to even get a chance of even seeing it. To be able to see that on basically, if you had a boat fast enough, you can go out 3 or 4 hours and see that stuff. It's freaking insane.
Some of the most crazy experiences I've had is watching bluefin just absolutely boil and jump out of the water. One of the funniest things is when they're up this far, like Marina Del Rey, 12 miles out into the shipping lanes, is you have a bunch of these guys with 25 to 40 pound rods and maybe a little bit higher, but within that range. And you just see people, oh, pass that boil, pass that one. That one's got 100 pounders. Go to the next one. That's got 30 pounders. Go, go, go. And everybody's just screaming, and you're just watching these huge cows jump out of the water. Oh, my gosh. Seeing bluefin is one of the most crazy experiences. The captains are going crazy. The deckhands are going crazy. Every boat in the tri-state area is just going crazy. Every small craft boat, every big boat, sport fishing.
Well, and then when you're looking at them and you're like, wait a minute. Oh, man, I don't even know if I want to hook into that thing. I need to go grab a different rod. That was huge. I thought that was a 70, 80 pound fish. That's a 200 pound fish.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying is like, I mean, I don't know, as a outdoorsman or whatever, to see like the apex predator. I mean, it's something that, we all strive for. I mean, in general, fishing is about, going out, having a good time with your buddies and all that stuff. But when you see like the baddest fish in the ocean, like pretty challenging, you're like, hey, come get me,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to go, dude. I'm going to go try to get you. So what do I need to do? Okay, get the gear. I need to go do it. And then you go tangle with one and you're like, man, this is pretty freaking intense, man. That's a story as old as time. Exactly.
I mean, just looking at Old Man of the Sea right there. He's out all day catching that huge fish.
You guys hear that in the background? You guys hear that beeping in the background or no?
Yes.
That's you, right?
This freaking door next to me here. But I'm going to move another part of the store, so hopefully it'll...
I thought that was the rod wrapping machine.
Somebody wasn't too loud.
Yes. So I got my first fish on a flat fall. My first flat fall fish. I was fishing the TLD, I think it was 20, that a friend of mine gave to me, and I was using a trolling rod. I go, yeah, this is a tuna rod. It'll work. So huge mistake. TLD worked good. It's just, it works, and that's where it starts and stops. It's not comfortable.
Right.
And the trolling rod was a huge mistake. There's not enough butt end on it. The tuna seemed to have more leverage on me than I had on him.
Yep.
So I came into your shop. I got a proper trolling, got a proper tuna rod. I got a Graphtec, which is also nice because you have everything from affordable $250 tuna rod to a $500 tuna rod. And I upgraded the TLD to the International, and now I'm properly set up. And it's funny because we were fishing a tournament this weekend, and me and Charlie were fishing together, and I said, you know what? I'm going to move to the flat fall. I'd come by your shop. I grabbed a couple submission 20 grams because Daniel didn't give me any flat falls. and I think after I sucked my second spotty, Charlie goes, oh, you know what? I got one of Daniel's flat falls. I'm going to tie this on. And I said, oh, that's wonderful. Daniel gave you a flat fall. But so Charlie got his first fish on the flat fall, and he was like, I can't believe that bite. It was the way it hit, the way it came after it, that was so aggressive and so incredible. And I said, and that's how you get addicted to bluefin fishing, because you catch them on a fly line and it's awesome. And then you're sitting there and you're reeling up, you're dropping, and it's the middle of the night, you're tired, you're kind of going, I think I'm going to go into the galley. What am I doing here, reeling up and down this 300 gram jig, 400 gram jig? And then all of a sudden, as you're thinking about quitting, I think my reel's broken. I'm stuck. Oh no! And it's just running, and it's just a completely different kind of slammed. Like you're stopped for a second, and then they know.
Oh yeah, Luke. I think you might be the first person to ever describe a spotty bite to a bluefin.
How many people are fishing spotties on the flat falls?
A lot.
I will have to say, ever since I started fishing the flat fall for spotties, Oh my gosh. When you go to pop and it's just your whole rod just bends
and
over.
You think you're
and
stuck. You're like, oh, I caught a rock.
Oh,
that's what happened to me. I'm like talking to Luke. He's like, all right, how do you work this, Luke? This is my first time throwing a flat fall, you know? And he's like, so are you just going to cast it out, let it fall, let it hit the ground, then you're going to pop it, but don't let it sit there for long because then you're going to catch some structure. So I'm talking to him and I'm just popping it along. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm stuck. Oh no, it's a fish. And it starts going crazy. It wasn't big, you know, I think it was like 13, but it was a sick bite, man. He caught me on the pop and it was sick.
Gosh. You're getting me excited.
And it's the same thing. If you're on a tuna trip, you'll start hearing people go, was it on the retriever? Was it on the drop? Yeah. Were you reeling it? Wait a minute. Okay. Were you letting it go all the way down or were you stopping it on the way?
How fast were you winding?
Exactly. How many pops did you get? Yeah.
Like, man, I just got lucky, man. I don't know what I did.
I don't know. Yep. Exactly. Sometimes it's like that, huh? Somebody's
like, wait a minute, hold on. What was I doing?
Yeah.
You're like, I just caught a fish, and you're like, what did you do? I don't know. I don't remember. I just remember reeling it in, you know? So
let me ask you.
But yeah.
I guess micro jig or, thing with the spotties, right? Man, I remember when people were first starting to ask for it, we started getting some of those submission jigs in, but people started asking about that stuff, and I'm like, man, I can't believe this stuff is that hot, and
it's hot.
It's freaking hot, dude. It's crazy.
Crushing.
I've seen people use it, but I think it's like what you're describing. It's a different bite, and it is it works.
We had that tournament this weekend, and it was like because I had to go do a couple errands, and it was like when I go by islands, I'm getting a couple of those for the turn specifically. I want to have a handful of them, so I'm not afraid to lose them.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're fishing them deep in the structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, well, we're me and Luke and Daniel,
and we're fishing like from shore.
We're dredging, right? We go slow and low, but that bite is different because you're working it, right? You're working it in. It's not like slow rolling a jig, right?
It doesn't climb onto your bait.
Kind of taxi. It's a reaction bite.
It's almost like when they bite a crankbait, but with a crankbait, you got a heavier rod. You're already doing a lot. There's already a lot of resistance. So it's resistance on top of resistance. This, it's so light and you're playing it so delicate that you feel the whole hit.
Like it's just like
the interesting thing that you don't see a lot is people actually throwing the slow pitch jig, shore pounding, which is something that Charlie, Luke, and I have been doing, especially with the higher tides that we've been having lately. From shore, you're fishing, anywhere from 6 to 12 feet in water, which is perfectly fine for the slow pitch jig anyways. So it's been really funny because I've had a ton of luck just shore pounding with it, which is, very risky. You do lose it. I mean, I caught a 15-inch for the tournament, and then like 2 casts later, I lost it. So it's risky, yes, but I mean, the risk to reward factor is extremely high, even when shore pounding. And it's just a funny thing that it works in both, like from a boat and pylon fishing, and even pitching docks while shore pounding.
And for our group, I kind of got it. What's that?
No, I'm telling Daniel, does he have a complete one?
No, I just clear coated these ones right now. So these ones are setting up drying.
I have another set at the house. I'm pouring a couple right now. Those are going to be painted and clear coated by this Saturday's tournament as a prize for the LA Fish Alliance tournament. So get yourself some platforms.
And some for me and Luke.
So I gotta give the credit for our group. It was Code Green and Tracy who they came out fishing with me, and they showed it to me they were using the Dimiki Backdrops. And when that trip was over, I called up Charlie and Daniel, and I was like, I just found our new thing. And what was funny is Daniel was already making that, and we just hadn't really had the confidence or the idea to equate it to what we were doing from shore. And what's neat about his is it's a little wider, so it flutters more on the way down.
I think sometimes what happens too is, we kind of, I'll think up a little bit, I mean, in general, fish in general, they're going to feed, I think, especially predatory fish are going to feed, in a certain way. So not to say that everything's going to work saltwater, freshwater, but there's probably way more crossover things that we don't give credit to, and over the years, that's what ends up happening. It's something that not new, but maybe new to that fishery, so this thing could have worked. I mean, should have been working forever, just no one tried.
Well, and a good for example is, we've been using the big Magnum flukes for calicos,
that looks
8-inch sudden impact. Yeah, the 8-inch sudden impact. And Shannon ended up catching a yellowtail on one. So when the Dorado came around, I know he'd had a couple of followers, and I was like, no, I'm gonna catch a Dorado on this. And sure enough, we put the sled head on there and basically took a bass lure and landed a really nice Dorado. And so there's that crossover that can happen back and forth.
Yeah, I think anytime anything eats something that's trying to swim away, the way that they eat it is probably pretty similar. I mean, granted, there's some things that you have to kind of consider with structure and ambush feeders versus something that's an open water feeder. But I think once it decides they want to eat it, it's probably the bait fish or whatever they're trying to eat. Those fish are the ones that are similar than what's trying to eat them.
Well, normally with the fluke, you're gonna jerk it or play it slow, or do some sort of movement like this. And I was with Shannon, and he was just winding in his retrieve, and it was that that 8-incher, which is bigger than normal, and this thing starts swimming like a swim bait. And he goes, "Oh, look at that! That thing actually has really nice action." So you get that bite where they're foaming up, and now you've got something you can burn fast through there. And it's not going to come up out of the water.
And what do we really know about what those fish are actually thinking? I mean, I remember going fishing with a buddy like 10, 15 years ago on his boat. This guy was kind of like more of a freshwater bass guy. And so we were fishing Catalina, and I was fishing like that big 8-inch slug. I just love fishing that thing because of the visual. Can't just, hook as many fish, but the visual is just awesome.
Yeah.
So I was that thing, and he was liking it. And so he pulled out some of his freshwater stuff. I mean, legit 10-inch, pumpkin seed, robo worm. I mean, it's like, oh, dude, what the hell are you gonna do with that, man? This thing's like, freaking Texas rigged it. He threw it on top of the kelp, and he freaking got more fish than I did. I was like,
I bet that thing got hammered.
I was like, man. I was like, well, what do I know? We were fishing this specialized thing. It's like, if you know how to work a bait, you're gonna hook fish, and that's what he did.
This last year, we moved into the big 8-inch trout, and the big calicos like them.
Yeah. I mean, that was another thing I remember seeing a few years back is guys using those 4 to 6-inch swim baits, for spotties even. And you see there's no way, because you're used to using a little 3-inch bait, right?
Yeah.
You guys fishing those 4, I mean, not even just the size, but just the depth of it. You just like, there's no way you catch the spotties on those, but nope, that's the hottest thing. I mean, so it's like, what do we really know,
Man, I recently started throwing big. When I met Daniel, before I met Luke, I was finesse fishing, and I still finesse fish. I like the whole just slow rolling, popping, and finessey. And then I met Luke, and he's like getting to some bigger stuff, right? I had to get bigger rods, bigger reels, and it's just. It's a different ball game, man. And then Nick from SoCal Fishing Squad, got me on the jig, right? When I met Daniel, I tell this story all the time. When I met Daniel, I was throwing a little mullet, with the net head and getting fish. But then you move up to that bigger grade, and you start catching big ones, Yeah,
the fun part about this whole live starting baits, fishing community and all that is the ideas that we wanted to progress our style of fishing from trout, from freshwater bass, from spotties, from sand bass, and so on, which has been so much fun just personally for me to I would have never thrown the flat fall a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago. I didn't even know it existed until like 8 months ago, to where it was like, oh wow, this is actually very universal and you can use it in a ton of different fashions.
Let me make my own.
We're going to catch Dorado on it next year.
Yeah, I love the idea of being able to make my own tackle box and using everything within it. So when it comes to anything that I can make and potentially want to make and want to fish, I'm like, I can do it. I can make it. Let's do it. So that's
Sam. Daniel's a MacGyver of fishing tackle.
Yeah.
You know?
There's been guys like that around, you know.
He needs a razor blade and a lighter. He'll make you anything.
That's it.
Yeah. Those guys really kind of push it, you know. I mean, those are the guys who, even back then, you know, I mean, we had Worm King and all this stuff like that. I mean, there was guys in the same kind of deal where they were making new stuff, and every time they come out with something new, you're like, well, what are you doing now, man? But yeah, get some of that, you know. So
that way. We just got a question from Carlos. It says, what Phoenix rod do you recommend for yellowtail?
Ooh.
You're using, if you're using a baitcaster or like a regular conventional reel. But obviously, you know, the baitcaster, those M1 inshores are probably what we sell the most of. As far as for conventional reel, like let's say a Torium 20 or something like that, we sell a lot of those Axis rods. I mean, a lot, you know, because they make them everything like a 12 to 30 all the way up to like rail rods in the same series in different lengths. So whether you're on a private boat and you need a short rod, 7-foot rod, they got it. Whether you want something that's 8 foot or longer, they got that too. So they have just a huge variety of that brand for more of a regular conventional size, you know, like a Torium size reel. But I would say if you're a baitcaster fishing, a lot of guys do fish that. And when it's a little bit on the, got to be careful with it, thin walled, you know, you can't bang it around too much, but definitely light, you know. But I would say that Axis probably going to be I would call it 780H or XH or 820H or XH. Those are probably the four that I'd probably start looking at.
You know, funny enough, my main yellowtail rod for Catalina is a Phoenix spinner.
Yeah.
10 to 25 spinner. I put 20-pound line on it, and that's what I put a majority of my Catalina yellowtail on.
I think we got a question right there from Doc Stocker. What are the 15 to 35 M1 inshore? That would probably be the lightest I would use. It'd probably be something that you'd be using for, maybe small bait fishing. There's all there is a small bait in the bait tank, and they're only eating like 20 pound. That might be used, but you know, that's another thing too, depending on the fish themselves. If they're willing to eat heavy line, you use heavy line, but if they're not, you got to scale it down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have another question. I'm probably gonna butcher this handle, but man, what is it? Mangling tangled.
Mangled tangle.
Yeah. He asked, what's a good starter baitcaster for calicos and spotties?
Ooh. Well, I got to say that Lexa, that Lexa 300, it's maybe on a little bit side, but it'll cover your calico stuff. You know what I mean? But just such a good value in the WN model. They're like $199, and they're pretty dang durable as far as the salt water. I mean, no baitcaster is going to be like, impervious to salt water. They all kind of have their issues, but that's going to be probably your best bang for the buck if you're kind of looking for a starter. They're going to be as good as you can get for that kind of money.
The Coastal 200 goes really well between calico and spotty.
That's a good one too.
Well, it's a little smaller than the 300, but I'll still take it out to the wall.
Especially they got that TWS now. That Coastal, that thing's nice, man.
Yeah,
that's actually really.
It's funny because I've never really understood why it's the Coastal, because it really is just like a Lexa 200.
What it is that's a reel that they've kind of put together more for like Texas and Louisiana market for those guys fishing redfish and things like that. They've kind of really, that's really their main market for that. I mean, nice out here too, obviously.
Yeah, it's got a good drag on it.
Good drag, nice handle. The new one has a nicer handle. And all the way around, that Coastal is a really nice reel.
Yeah, that's my next. Lexa 300 is my next reel, which I should have had already. But
yeah, you should have had it already.
I didn't listen to Luke.
I'm running 4 of those. That's my favorite reel. I got 4 of them.
Rods and reels out there. No, I'm a Penn guy, and I really like the Penn Fathom, the Baitcaster that I want to say is fairly new. But I have the 300, which is, I would say, on the bigger side for spotties, but it will get the job done for calico. And I mean, I've seen people catch yellowtail on them, so you could possibly go down to the 200 if you're looking for that inshore for spotties and probably smaller calico. It'll probably hold its own on the medium size calico and the bigger size calico, but that 300 is a beast. That's for sure.
I think that 300M is a little bit lighter and smaller than the other 300s too. So that's all they're kind of finding that in betweener.
Well, I'm a Lexa guy for baitcasters. I like Daiwas. I like Lexa. And if you've ever fished with me, it's almost all I'm throwing except for you'll find that one Shimano DC, which I'd have to say, if I'm getting just a spotty reel, that might be my favorite reel. I don't feel as confident with it on calico. They pull a bit more drag. I get a little worried that they're going to break my favorite spotty reel. But if I'm just getting a spotty reel, that Shimano DC is like playing a video game.
Yeah. Yeah, the SLX, or which one do you have, the Curado? Or?
The Curado.
Yeah, those things, man, when they first came out, I mean, DC's been around for a while, but when they first came out, kind of just a old school tackle guy, you see this new technology, you're like, oh man, what are they doing with these reels, right? So brought one into the shop, and they're like, man, you can't backlash this thing. I'm like, you kidding me, man? I'll backlash anything, man.
I would say I'll backlash anything.
So I'll put some line on it. It was just mono. We put some, I think some 10-pound on it. We went out to the parking lot. We tied a half-ounce sinker, and literally we're trying to backlash it. I mean, as hard as we can cast it into the wind, could not backlash it. It was funny. We were laughing so hard. We couldn't believe that this thing worked so good. Those things, yeah, it's cheating, really. I mean,
so you're telling me that you don't have to thumb it?
Zero. I mean, it's like straight up like on TV, dude. You just like
well, there's a couple things I like about it. I thumb it because I play it with less controls. The nice thing about it is when I'm pitching real soft and I'm trying to make these precise casts and I have less control, when I do mess up and backlash it because I've got the controls so low, it never backlashes where you have trouble getting it out. Pick it out real quick, you're done. Almost a year ago now, me and Charlie were fishing the back harbor, and it was so windy, and he kept backlashing. Shannon was with us, and he finally goes, Charlie, Luke's throwing a DC. You should probably move to a spinner.
And I did, and I wasn't backlashing.
That's enough.
Yeah, that happens. That happens a lot when, when it's windy, right? And I'm going against the wind, I find myself constantly backlashing, and especially when I'm on the boat with Luke. Short pounding, not so much, right? But on the boat, I mean, you're hitting different angles, right? Short pounding, I'm just pitching to the water or casting to the water, but on the boat, definitely.
Yeah, that's another thing. So I don't know if in this kind of inshore fishing, whether or not I ask you guys this question is, spinning gear, is this something that you guys feel is kind of starting to kind of catch on a little bit more? I know on the boats it is a little bit more.
So
I feel that it's kind of gone full circle.
Yeah.
Now that people have kind of X'd it out a little bit, they realize the benefits of having a spinning reel. And I mean, I've never been one to go above and beyond to be like, oh, Baitcasters and, those heavy duty conventional reels and all that stuff. Because I've done a lot of popper fishing in my life. So I actually have a few set reels for popper fishing. Because, I mean, after throwing a conventional reel with poppers, it's tiring, I will have to say. So you do get a little bit of a longer day with a spinning reel than you do with a conventional reel with specific tools and baits and all that stuff. And there's other things that work better on spinning reel than a conventional reel. It's like even when we were talking about the flat falls, there's specific ways that you have to tune your bait caster. You have to put it all the way down, make sure all the brakes are all the way down so that you get the most natural fall to get the best action.
And that's where I was talking about when I have it loose and it wants to backlash, was specifically when we're fishing those.
Yeah, and then you get that naturally with the spinner. So it's like there's a give and take, I would say, and you just got to find what works for you.
Yeah, because you got to put back the DC off for that, because the DC is going to mess up how that falls.
And then it's Josh just posted, right? Josh Soares just posted, spinners for me are more technique specific. And me and Luke actually talked about that, right? Going fishing for yellowtail on a spinner, right? You really got to tune it, right? Because those things will just break you off quick, you know? With a bait caster, I mean, you know, I don't think it's that much of a, I don't know, because I never fished for yellowtail, so I wouldn't know. I'm just going based on what Luke said and then what Josh just posted.
So my thing for spinning gear is I don't have like a Stella. I've got, like, this is a Daiwa Ballistics. I've upgraded the handle, and it's a really sweet spinner now. It does exactly what I want it to do. But most of the time I'm going to use my Baitcasters because I can just get more accurate casts with spotties. That being said, I want to say, like, on the big boats, when I first started bringing my spinners on the big boats, because I didn't grow up on the big boat, so I didn't have that, like, oh, you know, spinners are lame. They're for rental rods. So I very early on, when I started bringing spinners, and often I'd be the only spinner on the boat, and that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And, you know, there's certain things, like, this is my favorite hard bait to throw, the Shimano Colt Sniper. I want to throw this on a spinner. I don't want to throw it on a bait caster. I want to throw it on big, heavy spinners for tuna and yellowtail. And it works really good, and it's a different kind of fight and a different kind of leverage when you have your belt on and you're able to put your hands higher and hold the rod completely differently than you are with conventional. So there's a bit of give and take to it.
How do you feel about that, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we, like I said, I've definitely seen an increase here for the guys, you know, boat fishing for sure. And like some of the guys were posting, it's really a technique specific thing, you know, where certain lures, especially getting into this tuna and stuff like that, we're using more stick baits and crankbaits, or not crankbaits, but jerk baits and things like that. And so I think that for those types of lures, the spinner is just going to work better for presenting. It's going to get you more bites. You know, on my last 11 day, you know, just for fun, there's a place we fished on there called the Ridge. And basically, you know, below Cedros, above Back Bay, it's an area where that time of year we get, typically, I mean, you never know what you get, but typically we'll get a bunch of, like, let's say 15 to 40 pound tuna. And it's like, I mean, it's like all you want. I mean, you can catch 100 in a day or something like that if you want. And they'll bite almost anything. They'll bite 40 pound, no problem. But honestly, after you're catching 10 or 12, because you're just releasing them mostly anyway, you know, you're kind of just keeping the bigger ones. So you release most of the fish. After you catch, you know, 8 or 9, 10, you know, 15 pound yellowfin on 40 pound test, it's kind of like not even that much fun, honestly. You know, you just wind them right in. So this past year, I brought a spinning rod just for that situation if we got to go fish there again. And at first, you know, and being on a long range boat, you know, I mean, there's hardly no spinning rods. I brought it out, you know, brought it out of my stateroom. I'm like, okay, I'm doing it, man.
And tell us
I don't care what
the truth. You had a Stella, didn't you?
No, actually, it was a Saltist. No, I have a Stella before, but man, it was just too much. But I was a Saltist reel, a Saltist 5000, not even like a big one. And as soon as I brought it out, it was like, oh man, what you doing with that thing, man? And I'm like, look, I'm just gonna out here just have some fun, leave me alone, right? So I hooked 2 or 3 fish in a row. And after 3 or 4 fish, everyone's like, hey, man, let me try it. You know, it wasn't getting any more fish, you know, because it was easy to catch fish. You catch them on anything. But it was more fun, you know. And I think that having that situation where now, you know, I've caught some of these, you know, I mean, and I got some, you know, through that experience, I did get some 30 to 40 pound yellowfin, which is going to be pulling pretty hard. I was like, you know what? This is definitely possible. It was maybe a tad bit, a little bit more time fighting it on that.
But it was also light. You were light.
not even the lightness of it. I think what it is that it allowed me to explore what all I have to consider, when I'm going to tell somebody, yeah, you could go do this, So one of the things was kind of like keeping your line tight, when you do get bit, especially with a tuna, it's just going 100 miles an hour. You got to really be careful, holding your rod high. So when you get bit, you kind of let the rod load up and then you set the hook, which is a little different with a conventional reel that you're always backpedaling. So you're kind of naturally tight to the bait.
Yeah.
With a spinner, you're a lot more slack. And so you want to try to monitor that slack a lot more. So there's a few things that you had to do, but once I kind of got it down, it wasn't too bad. But I had to go through it to really be able to tell somebody, you got to watch out for this, watch out for that. And when you're fighting the fish, it is a little bit different. But it was so much fun that this next year's trip, I'm going to take 2 or 3 spinning rods. Because if we have that opportunity again, I'm going to make sure I make the most of it. It was a lot of fun.
So someone mentioned in the comments, like, one thing to consider is that you can't put the rod on the rail. And it's true, but I'll play devil's advocate in that and say, yeah, you can't put the rod on the rail, but the rod is being held in such a different position. In conventional, you're a lot shorter, you're a lot longer on the spinning rod. And the other thing too is, like, so for my bigger spinning rod is a Saltist, it's a Saltist 10,000. And so it's big and it's like a winch, and it's winching on those fish in a different way. Yeah. And the drag runs in a different way.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt it's harder to fight a fish. I mean, once you get something over 30 pounds, it's harder to fight a fish. And that's usually the defining, comment is like, well, I don't hook a big fish on this spinner, right? And you're right. You get a 2-speed reel, 50-pound test. It's going to be easier to wind in a fish. There's no doubt about it. But, I think that one of the things you have to consider is, we're still trying to go out there and have fun, We're trying to, and I think that if you try different things, explore different things, you're going to be able to expose yourself to something different that actually might give you a new technique that when you come back and maybe you're fishing the islands and now it's like, oh, you see some yellowtail boiling, but then maybe if you try a stick bait on them or a jerk bait, now that you've gotten that experience with those other fish, now I'm ready to do it. It's really more about and using different baits in different areas. So that's the other part of it.
I'm going out purely to kill some fish. After the 3rd trip, then it's for fun. Once my freezer's full, then it's for fun.
Yep. Then it's for fun.
Well, we killed
the big fish came on my boat on a stick bait and a spinner. That's the big yellowtail on mine, 30 pounds.
Oh yeah, stuff works, man. I mean that's the whole thing. Is at the end of the day, that stuff works, and if you're not, allowing yourself to kind of try different things, you're probably going to miss the boat a few times, So to me, it's just for that reason too. Is all this new stuff we're talking about using this flat balls for bass? I mean, we would have never done that 5 years ago. Now it's like it's the hottest thing. So I think that's part of it too. Is sometimes because you don't want to like look foolish or you don't want to be like, oh, that's the guy with the spinning reel. Well, yeah, that's true. You might actually go through that, but if you can get over that, you might find that you're going to learn a new technique that one day is actually going to put more fish on the boat for you. So to me, it's like we need to get over all that. And I've seen it with my own eyes. It's like, you can do it, man. I mean, yeah, granted, 150-pound fish, I don't know, man. I yet to see kind of where I'm going to be good with that. But when we're talking local fishing, even a fish up to 40, 50 pounds, I think it's no problem. And there's going to be times where that spinning gear is actually going to be better suited. So it's just about learning new techniques.
What's your like PB tuna?
Actually, the one in that picture, man.
That one in that picture?
A yellowfin?
Yeah, before that I had gotten a 170, so that was, definitely a huge fish and it was awesome. But that 200,
how big was it?
This one was 220. Yeah, that was, that 200-pound fish is kind of like a 10-pound calico or a 40-pound yellowtail. That benchmark size, And so for me, that's something I've been chasing for a long time. So it was pretty awesome. I just got that this last November.
How long did it take you to reel that in?
About a half hour. Yeah. Luckily, it came on big gear.
That's quick. That's quick.
I was the only one hooked up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know somebody just this past year that spent like 8 hours getting a 200 in. So just saying, half an hour?
He said 8 hours.
But were you on like a 3-speed Avid or something?
I was on an international 30, just straight 100-pound mono, 5.0 hook on the fishing the sardine fly line. So yeah, it just came. It was hooked weird. It was hooked in the front of the mouth instead of in the corner. So I have a feeling that kind of helped me guide it towards the boat or like pull it towards the boat.
I think he just knew who you were and gave up.
It was funny.
Just like Luke with the calicos.
When I hooked that fish, it was weird. Like the first 20 minutes, it was like a standstill. I mean, I almost felt like I snagged the bottom for a while because it wasn't going nowhere and I wasn't getting any line. And then once it kind of like started game, so it was yeah. Once it decided to come, it was coming in.
What was that? Was that a big black sea bass?
That was a Gulf grouper.
A Gulf grouper. That thing was beautiful.
That thing pulled harder than the tuna. That thing was strong, man. I mean, that thing was super impressive. Like 3/4 of the way up, and it took almost all the line back. I mean, granted, it wasn't like it took like 500 yards of line, but it probably took 50, 60 yards of line like nothing, and it was like 50 pounds of drag. We actually thought a shark had grabbed it, is what we thought. And then it came up. It was basically like 100-pound calico bass. I mean, it was swimming around all kind of crazy, like if it was a big bass. It was pretty awesome.
Doing all the thrashes.
Yeah, just like a calico would. It changes direction and stuff like that. Just like that, but a 100-pounder. It was
doing those dog shakes.
Yep. That was caught on a skipjack, so a full like a 6-pound.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So just for that thing to eat it was a giant hook too. It was like a 11.0 Jobu hook. That was pretty awesome just to be able to have something that big eat a giant bait like that. It was pretty cool.
It's funny when you hear about these marlin tournaments and things, and you hear about them like, oh, we went and made bait, so we caught a bunch of 5 to 10 pound skipjack, and it's like, man, that's a good sized fish. You got to catch that just to make your bait.
There's marlin tournaments.
Oh my goodness.
I'll tell you all about it next time I see you.
Costa Rica is known for their marlin tournaments. And one day we're going out and we see all these $100,000 boats kind of thing all lined up. And we're in a $50 Ponga. And these boats with
he said $50 Ponga.
Yeah, it put us to shame. These boats are going out just the biggest weights in the world, and we're just on the boat just going crazy as we're just putting to like the reef just to do a little bit of like jig fishing, and these boats are going out and we're like, what the heck's going on right now? And it was like the Costa Rican like annual marlin tournament at the time, and I was just like, oh my gosh, these boats are beautiful and just insane.
And you guys won the tournament on the Ponga, right?
Oh, absolutely. No, they're like thousands of dollars to enter.
Really?
Not for me. Mm-hmm.
It's not a poor man's sport.
No.
I mean, fishing in general is not for poor people. I mean, if you're doing it for a sport, right? If you're doing it for food, I mean, anything will catch you a fish, right? If you know how to, like you said in the beginning, if you know how to play a bait or throw some live bait, you'll catch a fish if you're trying to eat, right? But sport fishing is expensive.
So I noticed this. One of the big changes I've noticed this last year in your shop is you have a bass fishing section, which you didn't really have before. So tell us a little bit about that.
On the freshwater or the inshore, the saltwater stuff?
Both, I guess.
Well, on the freshwater thing, we've been, over the years trying to add little by little. So it's been something we've been developing. We carry a lot of that Lucky Craft crankbaits and Lucky Craft stuff. That's been hot. I mean, we don't carry a huge amount. We got one aisle like for freshwater stuff, but we try to have the kind of the essentials. We have, all like I said, all those crankbait stuff, the Ned rig stuff. We have some of the Yamamoto worms and stuff like that. So your very basic stuff. On the trout side, we have, the same basics of, mini jigs and dough bait, things like that. on the saltwater side, we used to have a lot of plastics in the shop. We ended up at one point, part of it was with the rod building stuff. We moved some things around, and the aisle that we used to have the plastics in, we were going to basically move it into another part of the store. And then basically we had COVID hit. And so that kind of like messed everything up as far as that move. And in the meantime, it just kind of didn't happen. We are getting it back in, more plastics coming in, more lead heads. We just started carrying war baits. That's been kind of crazy. Now, guys looking at that stuff.
On the war baits, Doc Starker said he's always going in maybe 1 or twice a week to buy war bait heads. And he says you look at him funny because he comes in all the time to get war bait heads. I mean, he's probably addicted, but you probably think he's addicted by now, huh?
Well, the guys go through a lot, man. They go through a lot. I mean, shoot, just the other day we just barely got in our finally a good selection of banana heads, which is kind of like a staple for the boat guys. Mm-hmm. I came in, he's like, "Oh man, I never seen so many banana heads." Like, he bought like so many, I couldn't believe it. He's like, "I just never seen this many all in one place." I'm like, "Well, we don't normally have this many. We just barely got them in." So, we're trying to develop all that area, better. Mm-hmm. We're looking at some other stuff too, plastics wise, that we've been trying to kind of search out. Now, there's many like specialty plastics guys that make some pretty cool stuff. I mean, obviously the Big Hammer, all that stuff is a staple brand, but there's so many things out there that come through that you just like, well, I think there's better things out there, or maybe there's technique specific things out there that these guys are making. And so, I'm going to have to kind of start looking at that. But the main thing is that they're supplying, and they're things that work, So the guys, you guys, they're like, well, we can buy this and we can buy that, but if I can buy something that's going to make my career more effective, they're going to go for it.
Well, I know the other day when me and Charlie were going out, we were on we were at the Glizzy's at the ramp. We were going out the next morning, and I said, on the way back, I'm swinging by Islands. I'm getting some of those 2-ounce war baits. And I think I went by there. I picked up 10. I think I lost 8 of them the next day.
Yeah. Somebody asked, what about Reyes swim baits?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen. I kind of follow them online too. So, this is something that I don't want to approach nobody until I'm really kind of ready to have a space for them. Mm-hmm. One of the big things too that's been kind of, I don't know, it's just been, I haven't been looking in the right place or whatever. Having like proper receptacles for the baits.
For baits,
yeah, because we've tried. That's one of the things that in the past we had some of those yellow bins, and they work okay. But I found that over the years, the different brands of plastics, they would kind of start yakking with them. Mm-hmm. So I've got to figure out. I don't want to just put them out there and then have them get all messed up. So I've got to really figure out what kind of, where I can buy something that I can display a lot of different colors, because once you start getting into them, it's a whole wall full of baits.
Well, some of them are also packaging them so you can just hang them up.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna kind of derail us from this section. So Luke, you mentioned that you picked up a couple of 2-ounce war baits heads. There was a comment earlier from Bass Lure something number.
Thanks for respecting his name.
Yeah, Bass Lure something. He knows I'm talking about him. He'll comment or something. He mentioned, how do we feel about a double willow blade 1-ounce spinnerbait for spotties? And what I want to touch upon is that is something that us three are looking into and trying to progress in our own fishing. Luke, Charlie, and I actually just bought a couple of 2-ounce and 2.5-ounce spinner baits.
Looking for them right now.
That long cast and really just dredging style fishing, so that you can keep it in the dirt, or you can keep it in that low water column and wind
but move
fast.
It quicker. And we haven't really put in the work on them yet, but these are 2 ounces.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like the 1 ounce is getting there, but I don't know if it's heavy enough to do the style of fishing that we want. Maybe in shallower water.
Yeah, I've got a lot on 1/2 ounce going slower, but what we're trying to do I was speeded up more to crankbait speed, and that's what we're hoping to go with these.
And I'm thinking that 1.5 ounce, let's just say ounce to 2 ounce range is where you're going to be able to get that quickness of speed, but also that kind of that consistent depth where you're just banging
I got to show the third one.
Bouncing. Yeah. And then just bouncing and deflecting off of rocks and dirt and getting through the weeds. So the heavy spinner blades is something that we are looking into, personally, just getting better in fishing. To answer
Lunchbox, you're correct. Reeves does have, I think they're 1.5 ounces.
I think they have
some of those. They had 2 ounce?
I think they have 2 ounces, yep. But go for it.
I think they have 2 ounces. The ones at the PCS show were color specific or show colors, but I think they go up to 2 ounces.
And we'll have Reeves on here in a couple of weeks, so we'll go into that a bit deeper.
So are you looking into any specific companies that are going to jump in the plastics, or are you just in the air with it?
Kind of right now, like I said, until I really figure out a good way to display them, I just would hate to have somebody, send me some product and it just kind of on the ground, or I really want to work that out first. But yeah, nobody real specific that I've been like talking to. I'd like to bring in somebody that is can, for me, it's about being able to deliver, because that's the hard part, especially for a lot of small guys too. It's, it's something that if it's not really like there's something to do full time, it's hard for me to expect them to, to be able to deliver all the time too. And a lot of guys too, it's, it's not really going to be cost effective for them to deliver, from what I'm asking, so it's really about finding somebody that's doing that and also willing to sell wholesale, because sometimes it doesn't really pay off for that person to go wholesale. They're better off selling direct to the customer, because they're doing it after work or on the weekends or something like that. Once you start going and doing a full commercial, all of a sudden, like, they can't go to practice with their kids or stuff like that, so they want to keep it at a certain level to where they're not going to overwhelm themselves trying to like stock all these stores or whatever, because you do one store, then all of a sudden another store, then another store. Before you know it, you got 2 jobs now, and it's already hard enough. So to me, I got to find somebody that's going to do that, and maybe even hopefully someone that's local enough that's able to that drive it down and be able to make sure that the stuff looks good and all that kind of stuff too. So yeah, it's kind of hard when you look at a big company like Big Hammer. They stuff's made overseas and stuff like that, and so they got a warehouse full of that stuff, and when you send them an email, they just throw it in a box and send it, so it's very convenient. But on the other hand, this other local stuff, I think it works so good, and guys are looking for it so much that if there's somebody out there that wants to do that, then and even it might be something where maybe one brand we might bring in like a large volume, but maybe another brand we might bring in a couple here and there, like just whatever they can do. So I'm still kind of not really set on any one thing. For me, it's just about having a quality product and something that people want and works.
Well, I know when I go in there, you definitely have a pretty wide selection of lead heads and the other end of the plastic game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's
you got.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
the lead heads will bring our own plastics.
There you go. Yeah, I'm cool with that too. I mean, shoot. Like I said, in the end of the day, I'm there to try to provide a solution. And sometimes the solution isn't in our store. Like, very often, a guy will say, hey, do you have this? Do you have that? I say, you know what? We really don't carry that. Save-On has it. Or, you know what? Maybe Prep Performance, they got a better selection of XYZ item, or the category or whatever. So to me, I'm not really trying to be like, I'm going to be the best everything or whatever. But whatever I get into, I like to feel like we're bringing in products that people want and products that work too, that I can confidently tell somebody, hey man, this is about as good as it gets. This is a good product. But so to me, I'm not really in a huge rush, but at the same time, it's something that I would like to get going.
Well, I know for me, like I said, I kind of go everywhere depending on, because I work in Burbank. So if I'm on my way home from work, I hit Bob Sands because it's, 2 off ramps out of my way.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's on the weekend and I need plastics, I'm usually hitting LA Fishing Alliance or Performance for the specific plastics I want. Save On usually has a good selection, but that place is also so busy they can just run out of stuff like that. But yeah, since you've kind of, I'd say, changed your bass area,
mm-hmm.
I know like if I need lead, that's the closest shop for me to go to, and you've got a really good selection of it.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. Once we kind of started carrying that war baits, I think it's pretty much, forced.
Well, and you've got the cool baits.
We got the cool baits there too. And it kind of forced our hand. Like once, that customer that buys a lot of war baits, they're also buying a lot of plastics too. So it's hardcore. They're fishing every week, and they're going through a lot of products. So for them, it's also more convenient just to be able to find it all in one spot.
Yeah, and if you're a hookup baits guy, I don't think anyone's got a bigger selection of hookup baits than you.
Yeah, that's another one too. That in the beginning we're resistant to it. You're like, oh man, I don't know about this. I mean, time and time again, we had guys that were coming through, and they're like, man, this is all I use now. This is all I know. And so we started carrying a little bit, then more. It's like just one of those baits that, once again, it's like 10 years ago we would have never fished a bait like that, and not new, but it was kind of new to saltwater. And now it's basically one of those crossover baits that's just kind of taken over. I mean, it's just a good bait. It works in a lot of different situations.
Well, it's one of those things. T from Fishall said it to me. He goes, "Hey, everyone could say whatever they want to say. That bait gets bit."
Yeah. There's no doubt about it.
He actually said that at Performance Tackle when I was picking up my rod. He's like, "Hey, they could talk about it all they want, but it catches fish."
Yep. Yeah, you can have all the feelings you want on it, man. But at the end of the day,
let's put it like this: the reason people talk about it is because it does catch fish.
That's why they talk about your baits, Daniel.
Only the old
You flatter me.
Only the old
ones. Only the old molds.
No, but yeah, I mean, it's true, So with that being said, you said you like selling stuff that works. Do you product test before you put stuff in your shop?
I like to say I test everything, but if it's something that luckily I have a good crew, and if it's something that those guys think it's good, like especially on the trout side, let's just say that's one example. I don't trout fish, and not that I don't think it's worth doing, but just something I never grew up doing. But now that I got my kid, I'm probably going to start doing it a little bit more. But, I have a few guys that work at the shop. They're like hardcore trout guys, I mean, these are like Stella, fishing guys, whatever, juicy beef rods, the whole deal. And if a customer or somebody comes, hey man, you guys got this, it's like, I'll ask them and say, hey, if it's something you think we should have, let me know. I'll order it, because I kind of lean on those guys for that too. Matt works at the shop too. I don't know if you guys know Matt Olson, but
let's be honest, Matt's like the most fishy dude ever.
Yeah, so if he tells me, hey, you know what, man, you got to have the pickle green, whatever, with the orange stripe, yellow bit.
Let's have it.
And correct me if I'm wrong. What Matt caught was it a salmon? Matt caught a salmon in Palos Verdes. Like, who catches a salmon in Palos Verdes?
What?
He showed me that like a week after he caught it.
Yeah. I mean, he's just like, he fishes a lot, so he's one of those guys that he's out there, spending money on fuel. He wants to catch fish, stuff that works. So if there's something out there that he thinks is worthwhile, I'll listen to him and say, hey, dude, like, so yeah, I product test, but I lean on my guys too. I like having guys that fish a lot, and those guys fish a lot.
We got it.
It's just good. That's just good business. You want people that know the fishery, how it's changing, and just what's hot. And also, the cool thing about it is, like we were saying, stuff that you don't fish or you think you're going to fish 5 years ago, and then your guy goes out and be like, I got the new hot stuff for salmon in the bay.
Like one thing we had a customer who we had kind of talked about doing it. We're like, I don't know if it'll work. So, regular, like old school splasher and feather bonita fishing off the pier, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're like, why wouldn't that work for this Homer tuna? I mean, it's basically eating this tiny little bait, and there's nothing that we can cast. We're like, well, we had that problem for eternity with fishing bonita off the pier, to be able to get to them. I'm like, why wouldn't that work? Obviously, having heavier line and a heavier duty hook, but we can tie our own feathers. We used to do that back in the day. So sure enough, he tried it out. He's like, man, it killed it. So all of a sudden, it's like, okay, now we got a new way. So sometimes too, it comes from the customers, trying stuff out, guys that I trust, and so luckily I got guys too that are willing to kind of share that stuff. Back in the 90s when I first kind of got into this kind of stuff, everything was a secret. I mean, if somebody had to do with something, nobody talked about it. No one would ever tell you anything else because, oh yeah, that guy would just spill the beans. You don't want to tell him about it.
Well, that's been one of the nice things for me this last year is, if I found something that worked, I was quiet about it. And then I started, working with Daniel and working with Sudden Impact. And it was like, no. If this is working, we need pictures and you need to talk about it. It's like, oh,
wait a minute.
Oh, okay, that's kind of cool. Like, I'm not telling all the secrets. I'm telling that their baits are doing good.
Well, about that too, it's like you still got to go out there. You still got to find the fish. You still got to fish them. So it's funny because, you get the age-old question, oh, do you tell people about your spots? You're like, they still got to catch fish. Fish move. It's what you think that fish is just going to stay there every day for the next however long until he's caught again, and then
they do on that little piece of kelp, huh, Charlie?
I mean, I don't think I see Simon in here, but I did poach his 15-incher. I will tell you that he caught it Friday night, and I went, I'm going to cast in the same spot, and I hope that 15 is still there. And he was, and I caught him.
It wasn't the same one. I'm like, it wasn't the same one. It was probably his brother. No, but yeah, it was funny because that day me and Luke were fishing. It was just like, I got this little spot right here, found it on low tide. Right there's going to be a fish right there. I'm like, no, there's not. Sure enough, he pitches that flat fall or that death fall, whatever, and he catches the fish. Amazing.
You're gonna like this one, Sam. So Daniel's been making these flat falls for a while. He goes, you know what? I'm not gonna sell these. I'm just gonna keep these for our group. It's gonna be like our secret weapon. So any YouTube video we're making, any reels, any pictures, I'm editing these things out so you can't see any of them. And a couple weeks ago, he goes, you know what? I'm going to start selling them, so I'm going to need all your footage of them. Goes, oh, you mean all the footage that for the last 2 months I've been taking all the time to edit out? No, it's gone. It doesn't exist. So I didn't tell you to get rid of it, but I'm like, you told me it was a secret.
It was Project Cyclops. It was Project Cyclops.
Let it go.
Yeah. Like, I didn't I'm not even joking. We probably caught like 20 or 30 fish on them. And there's no pictures.
Yeah.
I know, right? I was like, hey, Luke, can you send me pictures? And he's like, I destroyed my phone. I don't think you realize, like, I didn't leave anything alive. I threw that phone away. I took the battery out, broke the chip, tossed it overboard, and got a new phone.
Project Cyclops.
Project Cyclops, not a secret anymore. Hit him up if he wants some flat falls.
So we got 4 minutes left. Any last plugs you want to do? Anything you want to talk about? We're all going to be. We are. I don't know about we. I'm specifically going to the Bart Hall show to build 4 new rods. I got 4 rods that they're working out. I'm going to rebuild 4 rods. So that's my deal, is to see you at the Bart Hall show. Get all my stuff sorted out there. Charlie's going to be doing a rod build too. So anything else you want to add about the show, or any stuff in the shop you want to plug?
I mean, for me, it's really about going down there and supporting those guys that are making an effort to further our industry. Whether it's at my booth or whatever booth is the shop closest to you, or bait company or whatever it is. I mean, these guys work so hard every day to bring us stuff that we can go out and have a good time. Go snag it on a rock or something. But
a rockfish.
Yeah,
a rockfish.
It's important that we go out there and support those guys. And I'm not sure how you guys feel on the PTA thing, but if you guys haven't joined, now but go down there and at least talk to those guys. There's a lot of things going on. With that 30 by 30, we have to get more and let more people know about it. They have to kind of, at least become informed. So going down to the show is about supporting our community, and I hope that everybody goes. We have a lot of good deals. I could talk all day about buy two get one free, whatever. But if you go down there, it's worth going for sure. But I really think it's more important just to get down there and supporting all the landings, everybody who's involved in our industry, because all together is kind of what we all need to be, is to fight the 30 by 30. So, maybe bring some of those guys onto one of the podcasts. It might be a good idea to kind of have a little conversation. I don't know if it'd be an hour and a half, but
we had one of them on.
Oh, good. Yeah,
we had a Grant from Waterman's Collective on. He's part of that.
Perfect. Yeah, him and his dad. They're doing a lot of hard work. So I'm glad you guys are doing that.
Somebody asked, I'm gonna let you do it. Somebody asked, what's your tackle shop called, and where can they find you?
So we're Island Fishing Tackle. We're in Carson, city of Carson. It's 21809 Avalon Boulevard. It's off the 405 between the 110 and the 710. Pretty easy to get to, about 2 minutes off the freeway. Phone number here is 310-707-1205. And come on down. We got everything here.
If you're driving on the 405 and you see the big IKEA, you're right next to the shop.
You're right next. Hey, what's up with that, Roger Zach? Thumbs down, man. Thumbs up.
He clicked the wrong thumb.
Oh man, that guy.
So,
all right, you guys.
I got two last questions about the show. Is Batson going to be there?
Batson will be in our booth. They won't have a booth.
The big booth again.
No, but Bill Batson, he will be there on Friday and Saturday in our booth. And so if you have some stuff for him, but yeah, you won't be able to check out all the stuff that components that he has. We have the stuff for sale, obviously.
You'll have blanks for sale there.
Have blanks for sale there, yeah.
And this is the last question. I don't know if you're going to know the answer. Are they going to have the dogs jumping in the water tank?
No, they usually have that stuff outside. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's. Is it still a hall show if you're not eating barbecue, watching dogs jump?
You're right. I hope they do. I hope they do. Yeah.
Yeah, but with that being said, Sam, thank you very much for joining us tonight, man. It was a pleasure having you.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have you another time. There's a lot to talk about, man. Pretty sure you have a lot of knowledge. But thank you from all of us. And we appreciate you jumping on, man.